Assalamualaikum and good morning. Greetings to Sir Muhammad Shafiq and my fellow friends. We are from Group 14 and we like to presenting our topic Maritime Delimitation in the Indian Ocean, Somalia versus Kenya. Next slide. Okay, this is our group members. Next slide. Okay, this is our table of content. Next slide. Okay, for the first part is introduction. The International Court of Justice will hear the Kenya versus Somalia maritime dispute between September 9 to 13 September. Some Kenyans have moved the court in a bid to bar the state from participating in the proceeding in the maritime delimitation in the Indian Ocean dispute with Somalia. They argue that if the government participates in the ICJ case, it has the potential of committing an unconstitutional alteration of Kenyan boundaries. They want the case to be determined before September when the ICJ case will be heard. And I will pass the next presenter.
Okay, thank you. So the fact of the case, next slide. So for the title is the maritime delimitation between Somalia and the Kenya in the Indian Ocean. The fact is Somalia and Kenya are party of the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea. So on 7 April 2009, the court had agreed to grant to each other no objection under the MOU for beyond 200 nautical miles from the continental shelf outer limit under the CLCS. So 5 years later, on 20 August 2014, Somalia began proceeding against Kenya asking for the final word in dividing the complete border of the maritime area between the both countries. So when Somalia recognized the jurisdiction of the court as mandatory, the state of Kenya refused to recognize the jurisdiction of the court and issued two objections, namely regarding the jurisdiction of the court, while the other was regarding the admissibility of the application. So for the issue, whether Kenya refusal to acknowledge jurisdiction impose a liability on the court and raise question about the validity of application received by the court. Next slide. So for the holding, the answer is no, because Kenya application should be rejected because the MOU lack of clause saying that they will limit their border through negotiation only after they have complete reviewing CLCS against their proposal. So for the rationale, Kenya refused to acknowledge jurisdiction. The court evaluated the instrument legal character under international law and decide that it is genuine. Agreement that goes into force upon signature and bind the parties to it under international law. The court also noted the MOU goal and purpose was to reach an agreement without objection. So I pass the next presenter.
So for the judgment, on the 28th August 2014, the government of Somalia filed an application in registry of the court instituting proceeding against the Republic of Kenya concerning a dispute the establishment of the single maritime boundary between Somalia and Kenya in the Indian Ocean, delimiting the EEZ, the territory and the continental shelf, including the continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles. From the September 19 to September 23, 2016, public hearing on Kenya preliminary objection were held. On the writing proceeding, Somalia respectfully requests to the court on the basis of the fact and law set forth in this memorial to determine the complete course of the maritime boundaries between Somalia and Kenya in the Indian Ocean, including the continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles. As Kenya, it requests education and declaration that the maritime boundary between Somalia and Kenya in the Indian Ocean must follow the specific parallel latitude extending from the primary beacon to the continental shelf outer limit. Next is Somalia claim that no maritime boundary exists between the two countries and request that the court draw one. Kenya argue that the Somalia Maritime Law of 1988, which talk about the a straight line as the territorial sea boundary refer to the parallel range instead of an equidistant line and show Somalia inability to respond. Kenya and Somalia to submit their submission on the outer limits of the continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles to the Commission of the Limit of the Continental Shelf, CLCS. So, on another side, Somalia observed that the Article 15, 74 and 83 of the UNCLOS make it plain that the limitation must be accomplished via agreement. Somalia claimed that Kenya has not indicated how acquisitions differ from the tacit agreement in this regard. Somalia also asserted the failure to protest a claim notification does not automatically imply the acceptance of the claim. In its final submission, Somalia has petitioned the court to require Kenya to stop its wrongdoing and hand over technical data collected in region under Somalia's sovereignty or sovereign rights to Somalia. So next, the court used 4 steps for procedure, which is first it began by determining the relevant coastline and baseline as well as the precise amount of overlapping rights. Second, it determined if there was any prior tacit or explicit border agreement pertaining to the delimitation of the marine territories in dispute. Third, it used the median line spatial circumstances criteria to define the territorial sea. Fourth is defining the easy and continuous shelf inside and beyond 200 nautical miles. Article 1574 and 1883 of UNCLOS control the delimitation of the territorial sea, continental shelf, and easy in this situation. The court stated that it's so not need to break from its usual approach unless there were compelling reason to do so. Besides, despite the absence of recommendation from the CLCS to the Somalia or Kenya, the ICJ affirmed its own power to delimit the continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles. Besides that, CLCS, according to CLCS, it recommend the ultimate position of the seaward delimitation beyond the 200 nautical miles boundary remain to be determined. So I will pass to the next presenter.
Next is dicta. In order to assess it as an agreed dispute settlement process, it then consider paragraph 6 of the MOU. The court notes that the provision in the question refer primarily to the continental shelf and not to complete maritime boundary between the parties, which shows that it did not design a dispute settlement system for the decision of that boundary. The court determines that the MOU does not contain an agreement between the parties to resort to some other means of ways of settlement. The legal status of the MOU under international law, both Somalia and Kenya are not signatories to the 1969 Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, which state that a treaty in international agreement concluded between state in writing and controlled by international law. Next slide. Next slide. The first one is dissenting opinion of Judge Benona. The court has dismissed Kenya's first preliminary objection, which was raised in relation to the presence of another form of dispute settlement under paragraph 6 of the Memorandum of Understanding between the two countries in the case brought by the Somalia concerning maritime delimitation in the Indian Ocean. The court took a different approach, assuming that paragraph 6 was difficult to understand without a comprehensive examination of the context in which it should be construed as well as its intent and purpose. Because of paragraph 6 and article 83 of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea are not comparable, the court reached incorrect findings. The second one is dissenting opinion of Judge Robinson. Kenya recognized the court's jurisdiction over all issues except that those involving dispute in which the parties have agreed or will agree to use another method or ways of settlement. Judge Robinson contests that the majority conclusion that the optional clause statement between Kenya and Somalia represent an agreement falling within the scope of Article 282 is irrational. Next slide. The third one is dissenting opinion of Judge Ad hoc Gulam. Ad hoc Judge Gulam takes issues with the court's decision to dismiss Kenya's first preliminary objection, inasmuch as it predicated on 7 April 2009 Memorandum of Understanding MOU. Judge Ad hoc Gulam concludes that in light of Kenya reservation to the court declaration made pursuant to Article 36, Paragraph 2 of the Statute, which exclude dispute in which the parties have agreed to seek resolution through another method, the court should have determined that it lacks jurisdiction. That's all from me. Next presenter.
So for parties' argument, Somalia presented two arguments in response to Kenya's unilateral actions. First, Somalia claimed that Kenya's unilateral actions infringe on its sovereignty. Second, Somalia claimed that Kenya's unilateral action violated UNICLOS Article 74, Paragraph 3 and Article 83, Paragraph 3, which stated that parties must make every effort to avoid, threaten, or impeding the conclusion of a delimitation agreement. As a result, Somalia correctly disentangled the prospective infringement of sovereign rights, where Kenya's operations might fall within Somalia's maritime zone after delimitation due to a breach of UNICLOS Article 74 and 73. After the Guyana and Suriname Annex 8 at arbitration in 2007, the Ghana case by the Special Chamber of International Tribunal Law of the Sea in 2017 was the third case in which an international decision-making body determined the meaning and the scope of UNICLOS Article 74, Paragraph 3 and Article 83, Paragraph 3 in the context of unilateral oil and gas activities in disputed maritime areas. The ICJ followed the judgment of the International Tribunal Law of the Sea in the Ghana case on the first argument concerning the alleged infringement of Somalia's sovereign rights. Even if it is eventually allocated to the state, the ICJ concluded that a state operation is limited area to which another state has also lodged claims to not infringe the state's rights. The court agreed that delimitation serves a constitutive purpose. It is an act that grants state sovereign rights. On the second argument, the court did not believe that operation of a transitory character, granting oil concession, performing seismic surveys, was sufficient to imperil or obstruct the establishment of a final agreement. In Guyana and Suriname case, the court stated that drilling activities that result in a permanent physical changes in a marine environment could imperil or obstruct the finalization of an agreement. The court, however, found the evidence inadequate to show that Kenya conducted drilling operation that could have resulted in permanent physical alteration in the disputed region after the dispute was resolved in 2009 and thus found no breach. Nonetheless, the court appears to have endorsed the argument that a unilateral drilling in disputed marine areas that causes permanent injury is a violation of UNICLOS Article 74 and Article 83. Next slide. So for the critical arguments, the court's handling of various issues raises questions about its jurisprudence, consistency, and durability. The court evaluated a concavity outside the relevant coastlines, defined the continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles in the absence of CLCS proposals. Nonetheless, for the establishment of stable legal system, a consistent interpretation and execution of relevant international standards are critical. These points deviated from the court's consistent precedents and add to the uncertainty. Furthermore, the court did not address the substance of UNICLOS Article 74, Paragraph 3 and Article 83, Paragraph 3. I'll pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
For conclusion, the court decision on the preliminary objection in Somalia versus Kenya is to be courteous. If a party wishes to insist that no negotiation should begin before a certain date, it should take care not to conduct any negotiation at all. Regardless of the excuse, prudence is also required in the process of reservation to the court jurisdiction. That they are not encouraged to draft ambiguous reservation in the hope of invading the World Court compulsory jurisdiction. That's all from our presentation. Thank